AnguishedAllureMagazine.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey everybody, this is Darcy DeMoss. You're listening to All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas with another fresh episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. Spooky season is just around the corner, and I have my very good friend Lauren Marie Taylor on the show for the second time today. Today's going to be cool, though, because we're going to be talking about her podcast called Not the Final Girl Podcast, and it's a dual episode because this will also air on her show, so that's a lot of fun, something that I've never done before, so looking forward to that. And before we get Lauren on the phone, I need to let you guys know about today's sponsor, and that sponsor is Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space, so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. All right, guys, so let's get Lauren on the phone and get this interview rolling. Today's episode is brought to you by AnguishedAllureMagazine. Anguished Allure was founded in Buffalo and celebrates Halloween all year long. Anguished Allure Magazine features gothic and horror-themed businesses, artists, and photographers. If you'd like to buy a copy and support them, or submit your own artwork or products, please reach out to them at AnguishedAllureMagazine.com. So one more time, that's AnguishedAllureMagazine.com. So please check them out. Support our sponsor, and they're more than a sponsor. We absolutely adore this magazine, and we know that you will too. Hi, Lauren. How you doing?
Hi, Robbie. I'm superb. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. I'm so excited to be here on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
And I'm excited to be here and have you on the Not the Final Girl podcast.
This is really cool to be able to do a dual episode with you, and you are one of the best people I know, so I'm really looking forward to talking to you about all of this stuff.
And you are so sweet to say that because you were my very first podcast, I believe.
Ever?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you've been my only in-person podcast.
Well, I definitely feel special for that one.
And vice versa. Thank you. Well, that's why it's weird to record this. You're where you live up north, and I'm where I live, sort of up north, but on the other side of New York from you. So it's kind of weird to not be in the same room with you, whereas last time I was on my way up to visit my son who lives not too far from you and his wife. So we were in person, even though it was sort of a pseudo late COVID time. Yes. And that was kind of weird. And now that, people are getting around and going out, we're on the phone. We're doing the opposite of what everybody else did.
I know. The time that it's okay to be near each other, we're not. But, it was nice to see you back in August at Monster Mania in New Jersey. That was a lot of fun. And
yeah, that was cool. And it was really cool to meet, can I say your son?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it was really cool to meet your son, who is absolutely adorable.
Yeah, and you had your table right next to Kane Hodder, and
a headache later, yes.
What a fun weekend, though. I know you look like you were having a blast every time I saw you, and it was cool to hang out for a minute, but, I mean, just tell us a little bit about that, because you've been doing appearances like crazy, and that one just so happened to be one that I was at that I didn't even know you were going to be at until a few days before.
Yeah, that was a last-minute addition. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but I got the call from my promoter, and she said, hey, guess what? You're going to Monster Mania this weekend. And I said, oh, good, because I have nothing to do for a change. So I was a late addition, and it was really exciting to go because Bill Randolph was also added, the guy who played Jeff. He was added. Russell Todd came all the way from California, I believe. So there were a few of us there, and I had never been at a table next to Kane Hodder before. So it was quite the experience for me because he's very loud and he enjoys photobombing people. But it was really fun because a lot of people were wearing masks, obviously. They did have a mask mandate there. They did have the option for us to take off our masks for photo ops, respectful photo ops, of course,
yes.
where, I told everybody, look, I had a test before coming here. I was vaccinated, and I guess I still am if I was back around. And I was very open to just taking easy photo ops with people and not getting too crazy about it. Being careful and safe. I mean, I'm not going to hug anybody and smooch them on the cheek anymore. But I was very open to saying, yeah, hey, let's take a picture, take your mask off. We're both in good shape here.
Yeah, and it was really cool too because with the mask mandate, you generally would think people would cause an issue or freak out or say they were vaccinated and they didn't need it, but it really wasn't like that. Everybody was so cool about it, and everybody just did it, and it was just such a fun, amazing time, and it was the first big thing that I'd done since the pandemic. So I know I was just living the dream. I was just so happy to be there and see everything and everyone, and it was just so great. I didn't want it to end.
Yeah, I had been to a smaller Monster Mania earlier in the year. I guess it was in early May. They did kind of an experimental one, and only a few of us were there. It was Christy Swanson, Janine Taylor from Part 1. I think Chris Atkins was there, and just a few other people were there. And wait, Chris Atkins or Tom Atkins?
Tom.
Oh, Chris Atkins is another actor. But anyway, he was there. But it was an outdoor event, and it was a freak heat wave for May, and it was the windiest day of the year. So everybody's pictures were flying. The vendors, their merchandise and their tents were going flying everywhere. It was as if a Brinks truck opened up. And everybody just said, let's get this stuff.
Oh my God, that's wild.
But, yeah, I mean, nobody stole. I'm not saying people stole stuff or anything like that. It's just everybody said, my tent is flying. But it was a great event. It was a wonderful turnout of people. And again, the vendors were so excited. We all visited each other's tables, took pictures with each other. It was a real welcome back to the cons moment for everyone.
Well, I'll tell you, that weekend in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, it was about 100 degrees, and it was inside the Crowne Plaza, but some of the lines were so long that they had to take them outside.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that.
Oh, it was insane. For Matthew Lillard, they said the wait was almost 4 hours. Oh, yeah. Chris Sarandon's was pretty long, too, but they kept that one moving along pretty good. But it was just such a great experience. But that brings me to why we're here today, because we're doing my show and your show, because I want to talk to you about your show. You can't have a Not the Final Girl podcast and not be talked, in that same vibe as everybody else on your own show.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a new endeavor. I try to do something new every year, right? I try to not reinvent myself, but just try something new. One year it was learning how to ride a horse. Another year it was learning how to ice skate. That was a total bust, by the way. Another year it was learning how to ski. A few years ago I learned how to ride a motorcycle. So I try to do something every year, and I've been thinking about this for a while. And I guess it really took going back into the convention circuit and watching all the final girls and seeing how many conventions they get to go to because they were final girls, and those opportunities. And I thought, well, what about those of us who were not the final girl? Let's pay them some attention and give them some deserved props, and also the final guys too. I don't want to cut out the final guys out of this.
Right.
So I just decided, you know what, let me have some fun with this. I'm going to include final girls on the podcast, but I just thought, let me call it the Not the Final Girl, because that's who I am, and I didn't want to say, oh, look, podcast with Lauren Murray Taylor. The Not the Final Girl podcast, because that was me and a few different things. So your inspiration for, starting a podcast in general was just from actually being at the conventions? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it sounds weird, but everybody pays so much attention to the final girls, and nobody really pays, I don't want to say nobody, the Not the Final Girls don't get the attention they deserve. Yeah, they didn't wrestle with their killers or anything like that. But come on, we had to scream a lot. we had to go through all those prosthetics. I can't say that word to save my life, but we had to get all that stuff done, the extra makeup, the blood, the gore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, being dragged downstairs. Come on, just because we didn't survive doesn't make us not special.
Agreed.
So that's why I wanted to do a podcast about us.
Well, I guess my next question is going to be one that I know the answer to, but maybe your listeners don't. So I want to know how long you've been putting this in motion and getting it going. And, you know, when you were going through that, was it like a stressful thing, or were you having fun with it?
Well, during quarantine, the house was full. Everybody came back from Brooklyn and New York City. Even a best friend was here. And the house was packed to the brim. It was bursting at the seams with so much fun and movie nights and binge nights and popcorn and you name it. And we had all been talking about, oh, Lauren, you should do this. Lauren, you should think about doing that. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm, if I should do this, if I should do that. There were a few ideas that had been thrown around. And, I don't know. I guess I was starting to think about the premise about 6 months ago or so. Mm-hmm. I was out, running again, exercising again. And I started to think, okay, what can I really do? What can it be about? Because there are a lot of things in my background that I am qualified to talk about, but I didn't want to go there personally yet. Maybe down the line I will, but I didn't want to go there personally yet. So I thought, what can I do that's a little bit more fun? Mm-hmm. And that's when we all started talking about, well, you are not the final girl. Why don't you do something that revolves around that? And I was like, well, okay. So I started thinking, well, maybe I'll do a podcast because I really enjoy doing these podcasts. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of great people out there. You included, obviously. People who become your friends, you obviously.
Thank you.
I started thinking about what would the premise be, because it can't just be final girls. And there are a lot of not the final girls, I should say. It wouldn't be about not the final girls.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, okay, what would my premise be if it's called the Not the Final Girl podcast? Yes, there are a lot of us, but who else? So then I thought, all right, let me bring in the guys who are wardrobely challenged, whose faces and so fugly from being, in graves or bashed or however they got so fugly that they have to wear sacks over their heads or masks or too much makeup. What about the people who created them, the writers who created them, the makeup artists who created what they're going to look like? And then, of course, the final girls themselves. How did they survive? So the premise finally started taking shape a few months ago. The prongs of your premise, mm-hmm. kind of like a tree. You've got your trunk, and then, okay, where are your branches going to go? So once I got that solidified in my kooky brain, then I thought, all right, well, wait a second. What do I need to do this? And that's when I asked you. I said, well, what do I need? And you're like, well, do you have a microphone? No. Have a computer? No. Do you have this? No. Do you have that? No. And then I went, oh, no, I can't. It was overwhelming. I remember going to one of the big box, what do you call it? Where you get all the computers. I don't want to give away the name of the place, but an electronics store, a big box electronics place. And I just stood there, I don't know, for maybe 20 minutes. And finally, this guy came up to me and he said, you've just been staring at this area for a really long time. I said, well, the boxes are too big for me to shoplift, so obviously I need a little bit of help here. So I showed him some of the equipment that you suggested. Obviously, I still have this really sad little computer that doesn't have a whole lot of memory or gigabytes or hubabytes, whatever they're called. But I got some of the basics, and so I set it up, and then I kind of had to take a deep breath and go, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, right.
I had a ring light in the house that my daughter had used for something, so I thought, I'll set that up so if I do a Zoom call, I can at least look somewhat presentable. But it was kind of funny because I really had no idea what I was doing. Then, editing, it's just all these things that I've never done in my life. It was scary, but I thought, you know what, Lauren? If you're going to really take a bite out of this and commit to this, just get started and do it. That's one of my mottos, obviously. Just do it. Well, so here we are.
The cool thing about that is you've already released a couple of episodes by now, and they sound great, and they were fun to listen to, and you're already off to a great start. But I wanted to do something like this because there's certain questions that you're going to ask a lot of your guests that are not the final girls that I think that you need to answer. So,
oh no.
So let's get rolling on that part right now.
No.
So, first one. Before you got the script, did you know that your character was not a final girl?
No, I didn't. Truth be told, I had no idea.
No. So
I just auditioned with a scene, the Vicky scene, the one with the puck, and I had no idea. I just thought, well, I know they kill people in this, but I didn't know who was killed. I thought, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, oh, I'll go to the bar with them. And then as I kept reading, I saw, oh, wait, I stay behind at the camp. Oh, that might not be a good thing. And as I kept reading, I kept hoping that, oh, she'll get away somehow. Oh, what happened to this one won't happen to her. She won't get impaled on a bed. Oh, she won't get her throat slit upside down like Russell Todd's character did. And then I kept turning the page, and I saw that the dude got the machete through his head, and I said, I guess it's my turn.
Well, I mean, sticking with the theme here, is there any way that your character could have made different choices to survive? And I ask you that now because your birthday's coming up, you're about to be 30, and, and now, with all this wisdom that you have because you're not 18 anymore, what could your character have done to survive? Because Vicky could have made it.
I think Vicky definitely could have made it. One thing, she should not have put on those brown undies because I think that pissed off Jason to see her put those ugly things on. Okay? That's one thing. And Warrington even admits that when I speak to Warrington Gillette, who played Jason when you see Jason's face. He even told me that. He goes, honey, why did you do that? Because I asked him, I said, why'd you kill me? He goes, why'd you put on those brown undies? I said, good point. The other thing is, what was she doing going up the stairs to look for Mark? Just say, oh, he must have gone to bed, and go back to your bunk or go and drive and go to the bar with everybody else. Like, oh, the guy ditched me. I'm going to go to the Roadhouse bar or whatever it was called and go drinking with everybody and survive. So I think she could have done those two things. Yeah.
I think that's pretty solid. And I would have asked the director, too, like, why do these undies have to be brown?
The other thing I could have done, too, because I watched my brother, growing up, I watched my brother become a 5th degree black belt in Ishinryu karate. And so I would watch him do his sparring. And I knew, well, at the time, okay, now I know how to do it myself, but I would watch him do these maneuvers where in 2 moves you could break somebody's arm, right? Mm-hmm. Later on, when I took karate myself, I learned how to do that myself. But back then, I didn't know it. But now I know if I had just grabbed his wrist, twisted it over, and just stomped to turn his arm backwards and break it, I could have beaten Bud out of there.
Well, I think now you should play a final girl and actually take it to the end and do that move and save the day.
That's right. You know what? I could put you down in a wrestling ring with that move.
Did you just challenge me on both of our podcasts for everyone to hear?
Yeah, I did. Okay, I want to jump across a ring, or, that big square that you're in. I guess it's a square. I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but I want to jump and kick your butt across that. Just square, poof, and knock you down.
Wow. Well, now I'm going to have to talk to some promoters and try and get some flyers made up for me versus you, and we're going to have this match now and let everybody see it.
That's right. I'll go flying. I'll be like one of those flying squirrels, coming out of the trees.
I might be in such shock that you might actually put me down.
You'd be like, what is that?
Next thing I know, they're counting to 3, and I'm like, what just happened?
I'm already driving home. Let's see, Robbie.
Wow, I can't believe
good time.
You're the first one to challenge me on my show, and then now it's a double challenge because it's on your show too, so I can't back down.
Ay vey, what have I got myself into?
Well, before we get on to booking this match that I'm going to book now, now, here's another question that I know you've asked, either past or future guests, depending on when people hear this episode. What was your reaction when you attended your first horror convention?
Oh, boy. I was shocked. My first horror convention was very different than a lot of my guests. Most of my guests were invited or had agents that booked them through the promoters of the convention, right? You got the people who oversee the convention and invite guests. And then you have your promoter or / your own promoter, I should say, / agent who says, hey, I've got this client and I've got these clients and they would love to be a part of your show. Let's make this happen, right? Yeah. That didn't happen. What happened with me is I was in the city with my youngest daughter who was doing a musical theater program there, and I was walking around, the city while she was in the program for about 5-6 hours on a Saturday, and my phone rings, and it's Warrington Gillette. Goes, hey, Warren. Yes, Warrington, what's up, and why are you calling me in the middle of the day when I did not summon you? He goes, get over here. I said, get over where? He goes, get over to the Penn blah, blah, blah hotel. And I said, why? He goes, there's a convention. And I said, what kind of convention? I was thinking, like computer tech convention. What is he into now? Because Warrington, dabbles in everything. He goes, you don't know about these. And I said, no, I don't. I was a stay-at-home mom. Well, not really stay-at-home mom, but, I'd been working in TV and for so long that I wasn't a part of that. Yeah. So I, moseyed over, right? And I walk in, I go, hi, I'm here, Warrington Gillette invited me, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a ticket or anything like that. And they just looked at me and they went, oh, yeah, of course, go upstairs. I'm like, that was easy. I didn't have to pay, right? So I'm going up the escalator and people are staring at me. I'm going, do I have a fly on my nose or something? Is toilet paper hanging out my butt? I mean, what's going on here? So they're all staring at me, but I figured it was because I was on a soap opera, right? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All those years. And because it was only a few years after the soap opera was over that this happened. So I finally get up to Warrington's table, and he gives me a big bear hug, and he's got Friday the 13th Part 2 posters. And I'm like, what is this? He goes, you got to sign some autographs. And I said, oh, okay, so I'm signing them. Love, Lauren Marie Taylor. Stacy, loving. He goes, no, Vicky. So that was my experience with my very first convention. Is I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'm signing like I'm on the soap opera, Stacy from Loving, and people are looking at it like, what? And that's when I realized, oh, okay. And then I had a line a mile long, and he goes, you got to take money for these. I'm like, wait, what? So they donate money to us, and I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't stay for very long. But that was my entree into the convention world, yeah.
That's pretty wild. What year was this?
Oh, my gosh. It was in the mid-90s, I would say.
Oh, this had to be like early conventions then.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think it was one floor in a hotel in Midtown on 34th and 9th Avenue. It was not the Javits Center. That was much later on. And it was very tight. The tables were very close together. Nobody had banners.
Yeah.
You just had to kind of walk around and look for people. It was kind of like being on a crowded subway platform.
Oh my God, that's so wild. That had to be cool, though. I mean, you had to leave there thinking like, wow, these things exist. That's amazing. So how long after that did you actually get invited to come back, like an official, not from Warrington calling you and saying, you're going to come here and sign and take money?
I think it was years later, actually, because I didn't have representation. I didn't know. And, Warrington doesn't live in New York, and, you keep in contact here and there, but he's always, like I said, he's always dabbling in something. So he's a busy guy. I was a busy gal. I had 3 kids in middle school and high school at the same time. And then after that, there's the whole college search. Yeah. And I went back to college and got a degree in education supplemental to my fine arts degree. So it was just, it wasn't something that was on my radar. And then finally it came on my radar. I got a phone call. And the rest is history. And even so, I haven't done a whole lot of conventions. This year is special. Well, this year is special because it's sort of post-COVID. Yeah. But it's also the 40th anniversary of Friday the 13th Part 2. So
right, of course.
A lot of people are out there, yeah.
Makes sense, and we got to give a shout-out to Warrington because not only was that your first convention experience, but he was also your first guest on your show.
Mm-hmm, yep, I had to have him as the very first guide because of both of those reasons, yeah.
Well, I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'll let you say it. What's the strangest item you've ever autographed?
I have them here somewhere. I got a pair. Yeah, of course, the brown undies. I screamed when I saw them, actually. It was pretty funny. the brown undies. And then recently, and which is how I got the idea for my artwork for the podcast, it was a canoe oar. Somebody had fake bloodied it up, and they were going around to all of the Friday the 13th people and having us sign the canoe oar. And that was kind of a weird thing for somebody to travel with to a convention.
Yes, I was there that day. And,
that's right. You were.
Yeah.
That was at Monster Mania.
Yes. That was this past August. And, I saw that too. And I was like, that's a pain in the ass to carry around at a convention.
Yeah, can you imagine trying to get on a plane with that?
Oh, my God.
They must have been local.
I couldn't even, I was carrying around a couple 8x10s and I was annoyed. I'm just saying.
That's right, you were.
That's it. That's all I had. I was like, I got a couple of 8x10s and a Ghostface Funko Pop, and I'm like, there's too many people to.
You had the Funko Pop
too. And the whole time, I'm like, there's too many people here to be carrying shit. Well, in staying with the strangest items you've ever autographed, what was your most cringeworthy scene in the movies that you were in?
Well, obviously, the most cringeworthy one was changing into those undies, which is interesting because in Neighbors, it wasn't cringeworthy, but it was just one of those cringeworthy moments for the parents of my characters. So, I played John Belushi's daughter, Elaine, in Neighbors.
Yes.
And I come home from school, boarding school, and Dan Aykroyd's character is going through my stuff. We're all going through my stuff. And, of course, out come the candy underpants. And Dan Aykroyd famously calls out the different flavors of all the underpants. And, of course, deep down inside, the good Catholic girl in me is going, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Are my grandmother and my mother going to see this movie? So it's just another theme, the whole cringeworthy underwear thing going on again.
Of course. It's just the running theme of your life now, because now at every con that you go to, it's going to be brought up at least 10 times.
Well, what we've started doing in Las Vegas, of all places we had to do this, we have a photo op with the brown undies.
Oh, yes, you did tell me about that.
Yeah, and a mock-up of the sweaters. So, it's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I do, well, anyway, that's all I'll say about that.
All right, so here's one that I'm interested to hear from you directly is fangirl moments at a convention. Who has been another celebrity that you absolutely had to meet?
Okay, recently, Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, I'm so mad at you.
Was there. Sorry. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Robbie Vegas. I really had to meet him.
I mean, that's a great answer, too, but I just meant because I love Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss was a big one. When I saw that he was going to be there, I thought, this is an icon in our industry. He just was everything to all of us in the 70s. We were afraid to go into the water, and just the way he's just an amazing actor. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go up and fangirl him about Jaws, but I did it for your sake. Okay, I did tell him, all right, I've got a friend who says you made him afraid to go into water, and he's like, and he of course shakes his head and goes, yeah, because that's all he hears. But then I turned around and said, but I have to tell you, my favorite role for you is Mr. Holland's Opus, and he just looked at me. He said, that is a great answer. I felt like I won the Jeopardy round. It's like, what is Mr. Holland's Opus?
Oh, that's so great.
I will admit another one was Henry Thomas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from E.T., and now he's been on the Bly Manor series. He's now in Midnight Mass. I really wanted to meet him. He was not there the day I was there for some reason. I think it was a work conflict that he had, and he couldn't come because they couldn't change his shooting schedule. So that one, I'd really like to meet him because as a kid, obviously he's adorable, but as an adult, I've really enjoyed his recent work. Yeah.
That's cool. And you probably will have that opportunity again because you have been doing a crazy amount of appearances, and it seems like they're not slowing down because you have a bunch more coming up. But before we get to that, what's your favorite horror movie?
Well, now here's the question. Is there a distinct difference between a thriller and a horror movie? Right? Because
I don't know.
Because Silence of the Lambs is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of people consider that a thriller. On the other side of the coin, there's The Shining.
Oh.
Okay, which some people say, well, that's a thriller too. But my argument, and I don't know, maybe you can make a case for this, my argument is, well, but in The Shining, you do have ghosts.
Yes. Yes, you do.
All right? You got the creepy people. You got the blood coming out of the elevators. You got, the woman coming out of the bathtub, all that creepiness.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Does Silence of the Lambs also qualify as horror, or is it more towards the thriller?
I would say that The Shining is definitely a horror movie because it's like a ghost story, and almost like a possession story if you really think about it.
That's true.
And
that's true.
Silence of the Lambs, I guess I kind of consider more of a thriller, but it's so dominant in the horror community that how can you argue with all those people that consider it a horror movie at the same time? But I mean, either way, I think those are two classic answers, and I think both movies are great movies, so you can't go wrong with either one.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, and then of course I do love, obviously the early ones like The Exorcist, Jaws, The Blob, all those great ones.
Oh, of course. And, Friday the 13th Part 2. Which a lot of people say is their favorite one because it's the first time that Jason is the killer.
Yeah, it's the first time that right. Because that's right, because he didn't kill Alice Hardy in Part 1.
No,
he just grabbed her off the canoe. You're right.
Yes, and we don't even know if that really happened or if she was dreaming, if she was in shock. We just know that Jason comes in Part 2.
That's right, and the sack head, and you see his face, and then you understand why he's got to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
if you could play a different character in a movie besides Vicky or, any character that you played off the table, who would it be besides those?
I have two, actually. I would love to have been Clarice Starling, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Ooh, the other one I'm debating. Definitely debating. I love Vivian Leigh so much, and I just love the character of Scarlett O'Hara. And I know it's politically incorrect because of the time, and people are just very antebellum, but it's a movie. It's a work of art, from a very famous book, a very widely popular book, and it is a movie. So I hope I'm not being politically incorrect by saying I would have loved to have worn those elaborate costumes, been snarky and sweet, sexy, but a little kooky in the head, just like Scarlett O'Hara.
I like it. That's a good answer. Now,
thank you.
We were talking about conventions a bunch, so I think now would be a good time for you to let everybody know the rest of your appearances for the year, because you're not done yet. And even though Halloween is next week, you still have quite a few appearances coming up, and I believe one of them is in Germany. Yes,
I'm going to Weekend of Hell. I almost said Weekend in Hell, but I think it's called Weekend of Hell, and that's the first full weekend in November. So I guess my birthday's November 1st. That's a Monday. So it's the weekend after my birthday. And it hasn't, here's the funny thing, Robbie, is it hasn't been announced yet. So I'm not sure when you're going to put this up. There's also Days of the Dead in Atlanta the weekend before Thanksgiving. So those are the two main ones that are coming up. And I think that might be it for the season.
That's a good run, though, because you've been doing a lot of appearances since, July, August, something like that?
Yeah. And what I've done that I really, really have loved are the historic theaters. The one in Pennsylvania on the 21st, they're restoring this theater. They really wanted to get a big community awareness of the theater to bring people back downtown. And so they had 31 days of Halloween, and on the 21st they showed Friday the 13th Part 2, so that was another Q&A, and just a lot of fun to meet local people. And then another historic theater where they filmed The Blob. That was the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville. That was another one where they have these horror weekends, and they have Blob weekends too. And It's small, it's local, and you get to have longer conversations with people. You still do the Q&As, you do all the pictures and the little selfies with everybody, but you spend more time with the followers of Friday the 13th Part 2 than you do at a convention. So those two appearances were really just tremendous for me.
It's really cool, too, because, you're doing these, not just the conventions, but the theaters and like the Mahoning Drive-In and things like that.
Oh, yes, of course, the Mahoning Drive-In. That was another one. And Tom McLaughlin, who directed Part 6, was there. So they not only showed Part 2, they showed Part 6. So that was a great time because it's historic theater, too. Yeah. Well, sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, has there ever been a time where you were doing an appearance anywhere that you maybe discovered a movie that you hadn't heard of or had heard of but never actually saw and were like, yeah, actually, that seems really cool and it's got a big following, and then went and checked it out? Has that happened to you yet?
Actually, yeah, it happened to me at the Mahoning Theater.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was a weekend thing. So Bill Randolph, who was in Part 2 with me, he played Jeff. He and I went there on a Thursday night. So on Thursday, they only showed Part 2, right? Mm-hmm. But the appearance was for Thursday and Friday night.
Okay.
So Friday night, they showed a few movies. One of them was Part 6, and, we sat outside with the lawn chairs and everything like that next to the cars, so that was kind of cool. It was cold, but it was nice. And so I saw Part 6, loved it. I had no idea that it was so much fun. And then after that, they showed Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, great. That's fantastic.
And I hadn't seen I'd seen pieces of Sleepaway Camp, but I hadn't seen Sleepaway Camp. And I was just roaring because it's like our movie. It's set in a camp, but there are counselors and kids there. So there's a different vibe. So you really get that it was a camp experience. And I don't want to give anything away to people who haven't seen it. I kind of knew, what was going on because, you're in a horror movie. You've been in a few horror movies. You kind of know the signs of what's going on.
Yeah.
But even so, my jaw still fell open at the end.
Yes, right, of course. Well, staying on that topic of, these different, you're watching Part 6 and you're watching Sleepaway Camp, do you want to tell the listeners on both of our shows right now some of the guests that you have coming up, in the next few weeks, just, so they have, episodes to look forward to?
Oh, yeah. I won't tell everybody, but let's see. I have Darcy DeMoss, who may already air by the time this airs. So I've got Darcy DeMoss, and I've got Catherine Tommy. Wait, how do you say it, Robbie?
Catherine Tommy Coughlin?
Yes. So I have Catherine Coughlin, who I believe was one of the very first Mean Girls besides Nancy Allen in Carrie, but I even told her so. I said, you set the bar for Mean Girls. So she's going to be coming on. I've got Kirsten Baker coming on. We also are going to be featuring up-and-coming writer-directors and filmmakers, too. So you'll be listening to an up-and-coming filmmaker by the name of James Sweet, and he did Jason Rising, the fan film. So he's going to be coming on. And, we have a few surprises. Kirsten Baker will be coming on, and she's been a good friend for many years, and we were very close during the filming, and we've kept in touch, and it's nice to have her on. She's got quite the story of her life that has gone through many transitions, many transformations, and I think people will get a kick out of hearing from her because she doesn't really do a whole lot of appearances in podcasts because she's a very private person. So it was very nice to chat with her on a more official level, if you will.
So there's a lot to look forward to, and I already love your show, and I've only listened to the first 2 episodes, and I heard there was a really great guy that helped you with it. And
I wonder what his name is.
I don't know. Not important.
I don't know. All I know is that whenever he walks into a room, there's like a big fanfare entrance. There's a theme song that they play. People start making weird sounds. Just lots of noise, okay? And people are always going, I wonder what move he's going to do. Is he going to do this one? Is he going to do that one? Is he going to get injured today? Have you ever been injured, by the way, doing wrestling?
Knock on wood, very minor things. Very minor things. It was, like slight concussions and things like that. Bumps and bruises, but nothing, again, knock on wood, too extreme. And we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Well, we'll see, because now I got to face you, so.
Well, I do have to ask you, how did you get into the wrestling? Because I don't think we've talked about this. So just before I let you go and you let me go, how did you get into it? Like, did you just wake up one day and go, hey, I just want to jump and kick people across this square space?
Well,
you know?
I mean, yes and no. I was a lifelong fan. It's like my earliest memories as a kid were of rock and roll and professional wrestling. When I was like 4 years old, my uncle gave me Kiss Alive 1 and a Beatles record, and I was watching, the WWF at the time, and those were just my two things. And obviously I started playing guitar and playing gigs and being part of bands and releasing albums at such a young age that by the time I was in my early 20s, I had already been doing all of that for 10 years. And somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, there's a wrestling show in town. Do you want to check it out? It's not, one of the big shows. It's indie wrestling. And I was like, what the is indie wrestling? And we went, and I was like, oh, this is how guys work their way up to the big leagues. I'm like, how do you get into this? I had no idea. And I was at the gym one day, and this dude came up to me, and he says, hey, you're pushing a lot of weight for somebody that's your size. Do you ever think about getting into professional wrestling? And I was like, every day. And, he's like, let me introduce you to some people and take you to a school. So I went to that school, had like a 4-hour session, and it didn't feel right. And I was like, I like doing this, but I just don't feel like this is enough. And then I found a better school, trained there for a year, and then they were like, hey, buy some gear. You're going to be on the show next week. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, you're going to have a match and you're going to do this and that. And we'll put a mic in your hands and you can cut a promo. And I was like, wait, what? And, I was 23, 24-ish at the time. And they were like, yeah, we think you're ready. And I've just been doing it nonstop ever since and working my way up.
What kind of things do they teach you in school?
So,
like how not to get hurt, basically?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like, they teach us areas where you can hit somebody basically as hard as you want without sending them to the hospital or knocking their teeth out. Like, we're going to learn how to throw clotheslines the right way so you don't crush somebody's windpipe, but you can still knock them on their ass. And we're going to learn how we should hit the mat, and we're going to learn lockups and what we call chain wrestling, which is like submission holds and reversals, and learning how to hit the ropes properly so that you don't get hurt, because the ropes are actually underneath, what people don't know, are elevator cables. So they're very hard, and they do hurt your body when you're running against them. Oh. And so we have to learn the proper way to hit those so that we're not injuring ourselves every time we're running. And it's just a lot of repetition. It's a lot of reps. And then we have to run drills to get our cardio up, because there's a lot of movement and lifting and dropping and running and stopping. And if you're not prepared for that, you're thrown up all day.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah. So it's very much running through the motions of like, all right, we're going to put you through the ringer, because if we don't, you're never going to make it through a match, period. And a match could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 25 minutes. And if you're in there for 25, 30 minutes main eventing a show and you don't have stamina and cardio, there's no way you're going to, have that ring awareness, as we call it, because when you get tired, you're going to start, I forgot where I'm at, how far am I to this? And if you start stumbling and falling and can't keep up with it, you're no good to any promoter or to yourself or to your opponent.
Yeah. When you're first learning all those moves, do you learn them in slow motion, or is there a chart that says, okay, here's what you do first, kind of like those football charts where they, show you where you're going to stand and how many yards you're going to go before you do this. Is there anything like that when you're learning how to do it?
Yes, you have to learn how to take what we call a basic back bump for a long time, and that's basically falling down on your back, but you don't want to hurt your hips. You don't want to hurt your lower back. You want to take most of the impact around your shoulder blade area. So you learn how to do that properly so that your muscle memory trains you whenever you're in the air or getting thrown or getting knocked down that, okay, I'm automatically going to land this way. So there's days where we went in there and for an hour straight, they were just like, take a bump, take a bump, take a bump. And we would just hit the mat, hit the mat, hit the mat. And it was so painful, and you would have a headache and your neck would be sore and your back would be throbbing. But it was like, just get that muscle memory in there so that when I come and I throw a clothesline and knock you down, your body's immediate response is to land like this. And as much as it hurts, it's going to hurt worse if you don't do it this way. So it's one of those things where you can't stop the pain, but you can stop from blowing your hips out or blowing your lower back and, land in a more meaty, stable area of your body. And then you kind of work your way up from there with like, this is how you lock up, this is a headlock, this is an arm drag, and you take small things and you learn one at a time. And then you work your way up to bigger moves, and then you kind of learn how to put moves together.
Because I would think if you do anything incorrectly, the slightest thing could be a disaster for either person.
100%. I've seen guys get dropped on their necks, knock a tooth out, black eyes, cuts, bruises, bleeding, just from a slight slip that you wouldn't think matters, and it's just one of those things where, it just happens. And I saw a guy once, which was very dangerous. The ring was wet, and I can't remember why. But something had happened prior to the match that I was in, and somebody took a basic hip toss, which is basically hook your arm underneath your opponent's arm and flip him over so that he leaves his feet and lands on his back, but he does kind of a front flip. And it's a very basic move. It's basic to give. It's basic to take. And he just came straight down on the top of his head. And it was just one of those things where everybody kind of froze for a second because we didn't know if he was going to move, if he was okay. I mean, thankfully, knock on wood, he did have some minor injuries because of it, but he is okay and he's able to continue to compete today. But it was a very scary moment to be in the ring for and see it inches away from your face.
Yeah. So, okay, I have another question. I hope you don't mind. So when they talk about a signature move that somebody has, like in gymnastics, the Biles, everybody knows who Simone Biles is. Here's Biles, in ice skating, it's a hamel-camel, okay? Mm-hmm. And for you, do you have a signature move? And if you do, is that something that you developed while you were in school? Or is it something that you just felt really worked during your matches and was very popular with the audience?
Kind of both for me. It's different for everybody. A lot of guys will change their what we'll say signature or finish based on like what their gimmick is or like what they learn as they go or where they're at in their career now. But mine have pretty much always been the same. Mine is the super kick, and it's basically just a straight kick to the jaw. And I just figured out that I was very good at delivering that kick from just about anywhere at any time, and it always landed perfect. So I was kind of like, this is my thing, and which wasn't really a surprise to me because I grew up loving Shawn Michaels, and that was his move, and he's the whole reason why I wanted to be a wrestler in the first place, so I'm kind of paying homage to him at the same time. And my secondary finish is called a TKO, where I put the guy up on my shoulders, he's facing down, and I basically will throw his legs out behind me and drop to my back so that he lands front first on like his face and chest. And that was just a move where I just started doing it, and I don't know why, and I don't know why I decided to use it. I just scooped a guy up and hit him with it one time, 1, 2, 3, and I was like, I think I'm going to hang on to this and kind of make it one of my things, and I've been using it ever since, and it just happened like kind of fresh out of the training school. I think I'd only been working matches for like 3 months, and I just so happened to do that and was like, I like that. I'm going to keep that.
So as a person that you've done a surprise move, okay, this is kind of like a double question. So you've done a move like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to be a surprise to your opponent. Have they ever come up to you, or did this guy in particular, who it was a new move for you, therefore he had never seen it before, do they come up to you afterwards and say, dude, what was that?
Not generally. Usually it's a very respectful thing, like we'll shake hands or hug it out depending on how close I am with the person and just be like, you okay? Yeah, you okay? All right, cool, thanks. And we just kind of like leave it at that. But, I've had people come up to me who weren't in the match and say, that looked like really devastating, and like go up to my opponent or to me when we've done moves to each other and be like, were you okay? Because this looked really brutal. And, sometimes it's like, yeah, it was really brutal. And other times we're like, yeah, I'm okay. I mean, it was just the usual, because when you've been doing it for so long, yeah, when you first start, everything feels brutal. But after a while, when you start taking bigger and bigger moves, something that used to really bother you might be like, yeah, that was just a basic body slam. When the first time I was body slammed, I was like, wow, that really hurts. And fast forward 10 years and I'm like, man, I'd rather take a body slam than get suplexed off the top rope any day, So it becomes one of those things where it's like, I don't know what scale to put it on, but like when we say we're okay, it doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It just meant like, I'm here and I'm not injured in the hospital, so yes, I'm fine.
And I imagine all of the matches are done by weight classes, right?
No.
They're not?
No. I've definitely faced guys that outweigh me by 100 pounds.
But, I mean, you must know about this beforehand so that you can be mentally prepared for it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. a lot of the times we know who we're going to face in advance. And like, if there's some shows where you don't know until the day of, we're all professionals at this point. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'll figure it out.
And you don't talk to each other beforehand. You don't say, hey, dude, you're like twice my size and 125 pounds bigger than I am. Okay. You don't do any of that beforehand at all? Or is that a trade secret that you can't, discuss?
No, I mean, sometimes we'll sit around and shoot the shit and like, I'll tell a guy, if you wind up in this position, I do this, that, and the other sometimes just so you're not unprepared. But it doesn't mean like I'm going to sit down and choreograph a match or anything like that because, that's... if you can remember 20 minutes worth of action, then more props to you, but I can't. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, just know your craft and kind of do it. And I won't give away all the trade secrets, but it is one of those things where, you aren't always able to do that. I've walked into shows and things change last minute and you just kind of got to do what you do because you're trusted as a professional to do that. And if you can't, then maybe you shouldn't be in the position that you're in.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's like doing a love scene on film or on a soap opera. Everybody used to say to me, it looks like you're really kissing, use the example, Philip Brown. He was on the soap opera with me for many years, especially towards the end. Yeah. People be like, it looks like you're really kissing him. And I'm like, no, there's a technique to it.
I didn't know that.
Makes it look real. Yeah, you're not really making out. I mean, maybe some people are, but I wasn't because I was married. But there's a technique to doing it where it makes it look real. And the producers of the soap opera that I was on, they used to say, you know what, go up to Lauren Marie and ask her how she makes it look real, because she makes every single kiss she gives to whoever it is look real. So, yeah. Oh, I had another question for you about your matches before we tally up, if you will.
Sure.
So you have entrance music, right? Like,
I do.
And here comes Robbie Baby. Do you use your own music that you write, or do you use somebody else's, like Dee Snider's, let's say, since you interviewed him? Great interview, by the way. Dee Snider's thing. Loved it. He's such a great guy, and you really bounced well off each other. Do you use your own music, or do you use somebody else's?
I actually have never used my own music.
Do you think it would be distracting to do that? Is that why?
I honestly I could if I wanted to. There's a couple songs that I was like, oh, this could work or this could work, as far as my hard rock stuff goes. But I just never really thought that it was enough to get me amped because it's my music. I've heard it a 1,000 times. So like when I hear it, I'm not like, here we go, and like get in the zone and ready to like give and take abuse. So like I've used ZO2, which is a guest on my show, Joey Casada, who's on the Chris Jericho cruise right now. I've used his music, and I currently use Livewire by Motley Crue. So they're just songs that like really put me in the zone, so that the first note that I hear, I'm ready to go. And I feel like my music wouldn't do that, not because it's not heavy enough, but because I've been listening to my own music for so long, and I put it together in the studio, and I wrote it, and I recorded it, and I've put it out there, and it's on iTunes, and it's on Spotify, and I've heard it so many times that I'm just like, no, I need something else.
Yeah, I get that totally. So now I'm going to put you on the spot. Since we've been talking about your music and wrestling, and you're a horror movie aficionado and expert, what is something that we would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, surprised. I would say that I'm recording an acoustic Christmas album right now. That's a big surprise.
So next time you go in the ring, you're going to go into White Christmas or something?
Yes, but only by Bing Crosby, not by me. Well, there's another thing, too, though, is I really do enjoy Christmas and Christmas music, but I enjoy Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin. That's the stuff that I like as far as that goes. And I'm also a huge, huge fan of 50s rock and roll. And I think when people look at me, they immediately think heavy metal, 80s metal, he's a horror movie guy, and they'd be surprised to find in my collection the Beatles, Buddy Holly. I do love Frank Sinatra in general, and I'm just like a huge fan of 50s rock, Elvis, and that takes a lot of people by surprise. And my guilty pleasure TV show that I love would take people by surprise, which is One Tree Hill.
I thought you were going to say Happy Days.
Oh, I love Happy Days. My favorite TV show of all time is The Munsters, but that's not really...
Yes. Yeah, loved them too.
That's not really surprising to people because I am such a big horror movie guy. Even though they're not scary, they're still a very gothic horror family. But, yeah, I have a lot of things that surprise people, but it's just because of my appearance. You know, I'm pierced, I'm tattooed, I'm long hair, I wrestle, I make rock and roll, and, you know, and when people hear, like, oh my God, you like Frank Sinatra, and, like, one of your favorite bands is the Beatles, I'm like, yeah, it's amazing how you can actually get to know someone by not just looking at them. But yeah, I have a lot of surprises like that. But, you know, one of the guests I had on the show, Tyler Hilton, is one of my favorite musicians, and he's just an acoustic musician, and he's fantastic, and he's an actor on One Tree Hill, and, you know, I do a lot of his songs, and I play a lot of acoustic gigs, and I think people are shocked when they come out to see me because they're thinking they're going to see a stripped-down version of a lot of 80s metal songs, which you will.
Yeah.
You will see that, and I do those, and those are my favorite ones to do. But I'll also do stuff like the Beatles and Gavin DeGraw and, like, Tyler Hilton and Elvis and Johnny Cash, and that's when people are like, wow, I had no idea.
Not to mention the little kittens that you carry around with you in your gym bag.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's what people are surprised to find out about me, is that I'm nice.
Very good, very good.
And that my best friend is Lauren Marie Taylor.
Who's going to beat you up?
Yes, now I'm being challenged.
Challenged to a duel.
Well, I mean, it's got to happen now. It's recorded, so people are going to keep asking us both when it's happening. So I don't know what you caused here, but something.
A rumble, yeah, the girl from the Bronx coming after you with her nunchucks.
Of course.
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Well, I think at this point in the show is normally where I tell people to plug their social media, but since we're doing both shows, do we both plug our social media?
Yeah, that's weird, because I also put it in the show notes for people too. Yeah, why don't we, I guess, yeah, why don't we do that? All right, okay. Who goes first?
Ladies first.
Okay, so on social media, which I'm trying to get better at, I'm on Instagram, and it's my name, Lauren Marie Taylor, with the number 1 behind it. And then, of course, the Not the Final Girl podcast is on everywhere you get your podcast: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music even. So you can check that out there. And I've got a budding website called NotTheFinalGirl.com. And I'm also trying my hand at Facebook, which I'm really, really bad at. And that's just Lauren Marie Taylor Official, because somebody did get into my other Lauren Marie Taylor account, and I cannot get into it, and I've tried my best. So a lot of people are sending me messages at that one, but it's better to be at the Lauren Marie Taylor Official.
Got
and
it.
You can edit that as much as you want, by the way, what I just said.
No need.
Okay, what about you?
All right, so I have dual social medias because I have the podcast social medias and, of course, my regular ones. So on Instagram, I am under Robbie_Vegas_official, and there I am promoting wrestling, music, and, of course, the podcast. And then on Twitter, I'm under Robbie_Vegas_ because Twitter only allows you to go so far. And and then for the podcast, it's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ABAO Pod, which is short for All Bets Are Off Podcast. So I have all of those going. And of course, much like your podcast, mine is also available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts from. And of course, you can download my music also on all of those same platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon Music, and there's 2 up right now, which is a 6-song EP. It's very hard rock, borderline metal, called Angels and Demons by Robbie Vegas. And then there's a ballad that's a single that's out there right now called This Way. And then, of course, before Christmas, there will be a Christmas EP that probably will only have 4 or 5 tracks on it, depending on how much I have time to record, because I'm down on crunch time right now. But it's just me. It's just acoustic, and it's just one guitar and my vocals and nothing else. So it's a very stripped down, fun Christmas album that I just decided to do just because.
Just because, enjoy yourself, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'm like,
love it.
I mean, kind of why, you asked me what people would find surprising about me. That's why I'm doing it, because I don't think people would expect it, especially after my last 2 music releases. So I'm like, let's just do this, because my favorite stuff is the Bing Crosbys and the Frank Sinatras, and they're very stripped down, just, I'm going to sing you a beautiful song, and I'm just kind of going to do the same thing.
Oh, that's sweet. Yay! I'm so happy to hear that. Yay!
I know you listen to my other one, so you're gonna be one of those people that's like, wow, how different.
I did. I really, when you said Christmas, album, whatever, I forgot, I don't know what it's called now, EP? Yeah. When you said that you were recording Christmas music, I expected it to be, have yours out,
Nope, I went the opposite.
You went in the opposite direction. And I stopped what I was doing because I went, whoa, this is another side to this dude that nobody knows.
Well, in about a month, they will.
Are you scared? Are you nervous about it?
I am a little nervous. I don't know how it's going to be received, if it's going to be, if it's going to turn off the people who like what I've already been doing, because Angels and Demons has been downloaded in 7 countries. So,
holy cow.
Yeah, so I'm like...
Excellent, congrats.
Thank you. And I don't know if that's going to be the same case, or if I'm going to get more downloads or less downloads, but yeah, it's been all over the place from here to Malaysia, and I don't know how that happened, but I'm very grateful for it, so we'll see how they take a very stripped-down version of me.
And if it doesn't work, you can always do the hard Christmas next year.
Yes, I'll take it from Dee Snider, who did a very twisted Christmas with Twisted Sister, and I'll take his route instead, and we'll see if that does any better.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for having me on, Robbie.
Well, thank you for having me on, technically.
Oh, wait, you're right. So we have to thank each other on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you for having me on. And, I got to tell you, this was really cool to do like a dual thing. And I'm interested to hear your version after I put out my version to see what we both did with edits and intros and outros and things.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to edit myself out and just have the last part where I throw you a few questions that you were not expecting.
Hey, I mean, technically, I interviewed you on your own show.
Okay. All right. We're back in the ring fighting again. Okay.
Yes. All right, listeners, so once again, that was Lauren Marie Taylor. That was so much fun, and I knew it would be, though. And, of course, you guys know from the first time we had her on, and you listeners of the Not the Final Girl podcast also know already. But for everybody else, subscribe to her podcast, subscribe to this podcast, and let's just keep rolling and have some fun. And we got a lot of great stuff coming up for you in the next few weeks. There's a fun Halloween episode coming out next week that's specifically on Halloween. And from there, we're going to be rolling in some more interviews. A lot more specialty episodes that I think you guys will have fun with, because you guys tend to like the drafts and the pick your top 4 or 5 whatevers. So thank you guys for subscribing. And don't forget to check out Death Comes Lifting at deathcomeslifting.com. Join the Lifting Dead Army. Get on their Patreon. And you'll see a lot of cool workouts. You'll see amazing merch, horror-themed, of course. This is for metalheads, punk rockers, horror fiends who like to stay in shape and live a healthy lifestyle. So it's made for us, our listeners here. And again, I'm so grateful and thankful for the support that this podcast has gained. We are 2.5 years in, and we're growing more every day, and that's because of all of you. So thank you guys, and I will see you next week.
Happy Halloween from the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.